Welcome to the Gamecast. I'm your host, Mark from Pix in Motion, joined by Greg from Pixel Play Cafe. And today's podcast, number 4, we're talking, well, Greg's going to take the lead on this one because he's the, I would say, the resident master here with the Super Metroid, me being a complete noob. I started playing and I kind of got stuck thinking like I got into an area I shouldn't, and I rage quit basically. I was kind of pissed. But,
and it's hilarious.
Yeah, according to Greg, under the platform that I'm at, there's a door and I didn't see it. So
all you have to do.
I didn't know about it and oops. Apparently I'm like right at a boss level, so
Not really. It's as close as you can get to a boss before an actual boss. But it's a mini boss, I suppose. So
now,
you didn't get your power bomb or your bombs yet, right?
I got the rockets.
Okay, so
whatever. So that was the last power up I got. And that would be my only well, yeah, that's where I'm at. Now, I didn't do any gameplay footage. I should have, but I didn't. So what you're watching is actually Greg's, because he knows what he's doing. And
yeah, you guys will just get frustrated, I think, watching Mark.
Either that or be yelling at the screen like, "Man, you stuck." And yeah, I do, because I'm gonna be honest. This is the first time I ever played this game, except for like the brief moments at Best Buy back in the 90s.
So
I was a Sega Genesis guy. What can I say?
So let's kick this off properly. I gotta ask you, what's your first exposure to the Metroid franchise?
Metroid Prime.
Okay. So
I didn't even play it on the NES, and I had an NES.
So obviously that's the 3D version.
Yes.
3D like update for the franchise. And it carries over a lot of the same core principles, but it's not the same.
And from the research I've done, a lot of the music from Super Metroid, they didn't straight up use it, but a lot of the themes were reused and morphed into like more modern day, for the time.
Yep. And Metroid is unique in that it's one of Nintendo's more mature franchises alongside Legend of Zelda.
Plus the fact that the hero is a hot babe or woman.
Sure.
And well, here's the thing. Back in the day, I would never have known. I mean, I didn't play it long enough at Best Buy to really get to know anything. But like when Metroid Prime came out, I was kind of shocked and at the same time kind of happy, because at that time that was like Nintendo's answer to Master Chief. And
yeah, sort of.
Well, I know
kind of the other way around.
Well, you're right, but at the same time, maybe not, because I do believe Halo came out first before Metroid Prime did. But I understand that Metroid was out a lot longer, since the 80s. But my point, because I didn't really play those games, I didn't know. Plus, those were 2D, and this was the first 3D one. So this is kind of why I'm saying it was Nintendo's answer to Halo. And here's the thing, though. There's absolutely, other than the fact that it takes place in space and different worlds, there are no similarities.
Yeah. Not at all. And this game, Super Metroid and Metroid Prime, all the Metroids, they all have the same DNA. through and through. Except
exactly, and
maybe
that's
some of the
in my research. Because in a future podcast we will talk about the Metroid Prime series, but I wanted to get some information on it, and there's so much ties, for this. It's actually pretty incredible. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't realize. Okay, so Metroid 1, that's on the NES. I've played it, but it was at a friend's house. Not enough to really dive in and get to know it.
Let's start right there. What was your first experience kind of like what you remember? But that
well, at the time, I played a lot of Castlevania and Super Mario Brothers, of course. And so I was used to, in all honesty, a much slower pace of platforming, because Castlevania, Simon, he didn't run. He was slow. I mean, in all
those games
honesty.
are especially slow.
Yeah. So that was kind of one thing that stood out to me, was that Samus, which I didn't know that was her name at the time, was pretty quick. And I'm like, that's cool, but I never got the game. It was at a friend's, and I only played it a couple times. And then I did have a Game Boy, but I wasn't going to get a sequel to a game that I hadn't played the first game. So I didn't, and that's the weird thing too, is that Metroid 2 was strictly on Game Boy, and I'm like, that's kind of strange.
Mhm.
Why would you do that? And then Super Metroid comes out, and to a technicality, that's Metroid 3.
Oh, it literally is. It says on the title screen, Metroid 3.
Okay, there you go. I was right. Technicality.
Not even a technicality. It's literally what it is.
That's fact.
Nintendo made sure it was Metroid 3.
Yeah, that ain't fake news there. But see, here's the thing. It's strange that you would have 1 on a home console, 2 on a handheld, and then 3 on your new console, which I suppose with Super Game Boy, you probably could have, then played it on the TV. But
Yeah. There's another term for it. It's not strange. It's called marketing.
well, yeah, on
If you want
Nintendo's
Metroid, look what we have on this new Game Boy. We have Metroid 2.
No, I get that. I get that.
Nintendo.
And I mean, they also did it with Super Mario Land. Although back then, I thought that was like the difference between Disney World and Disneyland. Like, you want Super Mario World because it's big and you got to have that on the TV, and then Mario Land is on the small screen.
Yeah.
But regardless.
Well, here's a fun fact though with Metroid 2. You might not have known this. If you play Metroid 2 on a Super Game Boy, they actually baked in code into the Game Boy game, for color palettes.
Oh.
So if you put it into a Super Game Boy, it automatically knows what colors to use for everything. So it's a more colored game than like every Game Boy game out there.
That's pretty awesome.
Remember, it came out a couple of years before the Super Game Boy did. So, and it was
they had to have known.
Well, it's the same team that developed both. So, like, they kind of did know, and they just kind of snuck that bit of code in there to give Metroid 2 color.
It's awesome, though.
So, pretty awesome, yeah. Neat little Easter egg.
So, as far as Super Metroid goes, though, there's a few things that I want to say. Number one, I think Nintendo was a bit ahead of the curve there. The art style, if they were to release it today, like on the Switch or something as a 2D game, I don't think anybody would say any negative thing about it. The artwork is just fantastic right now, like, playing it. It's ahead of its time, even though it came out in the 90s.
It builds atmosphere really well, doesn't it?
Oh God, yeah. There's layers and layers of it.
Just that opening segment, you get into that Sears space station, and it's like there's literally dead bodies all over the place, and Nobody's alive. It's all quiet.
Yeah, I was actually kind of wondering too when I was playing, like, where's the enemies? There's none. It was crazy.
Yep. And then you get to the room with the Metroid in it, and it's like, oh, there's what I'm after. And then it's like you just see the eye.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden Ridley appears, and he's humongous. And it was cool. It's cool for people who did play the original, because Ridley was only a little bit bigger, like fatter than Samus on the original game, because the NES couldn't do very big sprites.
Yeah.
And then this game comes and Ridley's like humongous, and it's like, wow, man, this is crazy. And you can, if you are skilled enough, you can actually hurt him enough that he will fly away before your health starts getting low. So if you can dodge his attacks and just keep shooting him, he'll turn red eventually, drop the Metroid, then swoop down, grab it, and fly away before your health gets low, because it triggers him flying away is triggered by your health dropping to a point where it starts beeping.
Oh.
So if you avoid that, you can actually make him run off like a scared little bitch, basically. And it's a good feeling to do, even though it does nothing for you. Ultimately, it's just cool. So,
I definitely am going to continue playing. You had said it should take me probably around 6 hours, since I'm a noob.
Yeah. It shouldn't take too much more than that, if at all. Now you noticed, like, when you landed and stuff, like the atmosphere kept on going. It was almost more ominous when you landed, because it's like rain. There's no living things anywhere. You're just like running through this area that's like empty. Did you notice though, after you got the morph ball and got your missiles and took the elevator up, that as the elevator is moving up, those little gargoyle heads would turn and look at you?
I didn't.
It's creepy as hell when you notice it. It's like, holy shit, somebody knows I'm here. That eyeball that just looked at me told somebody I was here. And then all of a sudden the enemies appear. You get up to the room, where the elevator room, and it's like all lit up and making noises. Like somebody turned on the lights. Somebody knows you're home. It's really cool, man. It's something that you can watch for.
The one thing I noticed, there was some kind of laser beam or something that would follow you.
That's what I'm talking about. It's like an eye.
Okay.
It just watches you and sees you.
Okay, yeah. I was thinking that was some kind of a camera system.
It is, yep. After that happens, if you look around those little gargoyle faces on the different structures, you'll see like the eyes light up.
Okay.
And as you're going up the elevator, they turn and look at you. It's really creepy. I want to point out a few things with this too that you may not know. One thing in particular is the fact that this game is a real popular game when it comes to speed running. Like, immensely popular. People do this for charity events all the time. They speed run Super Metroid. Currently, the world record for completing Super Metroid is 41 minutes.
Jesus.
41 minutes. Like, I don't even know how. I know how to beat the game easy. I do it every year at least once.
What's your quickest time?
Like 3 hours. But like 41 minutes. And I know they're like glitching stuff, kind of, breaking the game a little. But still, 41 minutes from start to end? Like, that's crazy. But I want to point out too, and you're going to notice this as you play. For those listeners out there too, we are planning to do this as a two-parter. So this is kind of like a precursor to what Mark should eventually experience, and then we'll talk about that after he has.
And if anyone wants to join me because you haven't played the game yet, please feel free.
Yeah. There's some things that I really love about the game. I did make a video on this. Maybe we can link that.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Is the game to me, I think it's almost about the most perfect game ever made. Like, it's not literally perfect, but as far as games go, I don't think they could do much better. Like, the controls maybe a little bit better, but by and large, there's not a lot to improve on. And I think when you finish the game, you'll probably see what I mean. The way the game portrays a story without stopping you and giving you a bunch of dialogue aside from that beginning part. The way the game teaches you everything without saying anything. That I think you're right on the cusp of picking up on that because of the room you're in. You think you're stuck. I'll tell you one thing right now: you will never, ever, ever be stuck where you cannot finish the game, ever. You will never, ever be in that point. So there's always something that you're missing if you think you're stuck. The room you're in, which is it's hilarious. There's literally a door you have to go through, kill some little bugs, and then you have to kill a bad guy to get your morph ball bombs so you can get out of that area you're in. That's it. Simple as that. But from this point on, you're going to find that everything that happens, they're trying to tell you what you need to obtain in order to proceed. So there's going to be parts where you'll run into a room in Norfair, which is like deep underground, hot, lava-filled area. You'll walk into this room, your health is going to drop crazy fast. Now you're going to know, oh, I should not be in here. You'll find out why. You'll find an item that will help with that. There's other things. You might find a gap is too large to jump over. You'll find an item that'll help with that. It's pretty much, it lets you go anywhere, but at your own consequence. So you can try to go anywhere that you please, but you may not be well suited to go to those places yet, and you will find what you need to proceed to those places eventually. So I can say with confidence, though, that you will never, ever, ever be stuck truly where the game is broken and you just have to either restart or just stop playing forever. You'll never reach that.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And I will be sure to not rage quit.
Yeah, check all the doors first.
I actually, well, to get to the area I'm at, I actually did check all the doors first.
Mm-hmm. Didn't get very far.
They were locked, or like one of them I couldn't get through. I can't remember exactly all of it, but
yep,
it's just basically like you're saying. So
just pay attention to the dialogue boxes as you pick up items. It tells you exactly what you need to know. Whenever you get a new item, it just says exactly how to use it and what it's for. So
do you have any tips that, I guess, for anyone who's listening, whether they've played or not? I mean, is there any things that you do that is not common?
Well, here's the thing: is I've played it so much that I'm sure everything I do is uncommon because I know where everything is and how to do everything in the game. Things to watch for, though, I can tell you that. Things to be mindful of as you play through the game, whether it's you or somebody watching or listening. Take your time. Look everywhere. If something looks suspicious, try shooting at it. You might be surprised what you find. There's a lot of hidden items, and they usually help with your progress. Explore as much as you can. If you find an area that's difficult to navigate for any reason, you probably shouldn't be there. If you find enemies that are too difficult, you probably shouldn't be there yet. They really make it so you cannot go wrong. They nudge you the whole way from one spot to another, so it's not it's not like you're going to really get stuck or do something wrong, so to speak. You're just going to travel into a place you might not want to be. Other than that, there are upgrades that you can get that are optional, so don't worry about getting every single one. If you look at your menu screen, you'll see a bunch of empty slots for those upgrades. And if you get to the end of the game and there's like 3 or 4 empty spots, not really a big deal, because you don't really need everything. But the optional ones do add to the experience quite a bit, but totally optional. Also, watch out for creatures in the world that are not hostile. They're just living in the world. Because
all right, I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, watch for those because they, most of them you can't kill with the exception of one. And if you kill him, you can just leave the room and come back, and he'll be back. So you kind of need them to get an item, but they all teach you something, or at least lead you to something. So if you watch what they're doing, kind of examine what the room is like, what their behavior is, they're teaching you how to do various things, and you'll see that. I don't want to spoil it yet, but there's at least 4 of these types of creatures you'll find in the game, and some of them, I guess one of them is sort of hostile, but not really. So yeah, just explore, be mindful of everything you're looking at, look for anything that stands out that doesn't look like the rest. So if you see a block on the wall, it doesn't quite look like it's in the right spot. There's probably a reason for that. If there's a crack in the floor that doesn't look quite normal, you might want to mess with that and see what happens. And as you go and you get to bosses, pay attention to the path leading to bosses. Now, of course, you're not going to know this until you get to the boss, but there's tells before almost every single boss on how to beat them, like easily beat them. So you might find that you kill, like as you're going up to one of the bosses, every enemy you kill drops a super missile. That's going to tell you to use super missiles on that boss as much as you can. Don't spam attacks. That's another thing. Don't just sit there blasting. It's not a Mega Man game. You know? Use some tactics. Charge beam is your friend once you have it. Just, you don't have to use missiles for every hard boss or anything like that. Charge beam does just fine for the most part. But yeah, I think that's about it. Just take your time. And I'm excited for part 2 of this whole thing to see exactly what you've discovered, because it's a glorious game and I can't wait to play through it again. I just played through it like a month ago, so just talking about it makes me want to play it.
Well, you're welcome to join me.
I'll probably lap you a few times, but
yeah,
I can join you, I guess.
Yeah. Well, basically, this week's podcast is a little bit shorter, but that's because it's a 2-part. Me before and me after. You know, my thoughts before, my thoughts after, kind of thing. So we definitely thank you for checking this week's podcast out. And if you have any comments about Super Metroid, please, hammer them away down there in the comments section.
Try not to spoil anything for them.
Yeah, well, don't be spoiling anything for anybody who hasn't played it, but I do realize the game is quite old now. And if I wanted to, I could watch all the Let's Plays on YouTube I want. Plus, I've already watched Greg, his review of the game, which is quite good. So check that out. That's in the description box. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and like this, and definitely share it. And hit me up on Twitter. I will definitely be announcing, various games that we cover on there as well. So, next week's podcast, we're actually going to be talking about PC gaming from the 90s into the early 2000s and how we built our computers back in the day. You know, what games did we build computers for? I mean, really. So we will talk to you next week. And again, thanks for listening and checking it out. See you later.